Security humiliates and ejects Will Smith from the mall without knowing he is the owner. Marcus Reynolds had been working security at Westbrook Mall for 15 years, and he prided himself on his ability to spot trouble before it materialized. The prestigious shopping center, nestled in the heart of Beverly Hills, catered to Hollywood's elite and the world's wealthiest shoppers. His trained eye had prevented countless incidents, earning him Employee of the Month 12 times over his tenure. On this particular Tuesday morning, something about the tall, well-dressed man wandering through the mall's marble corridors didn't sit right with Marcus. The stranger moved with an unhurried grace, studying every detail of the surroundings. The intricate crown moldings, the carefully curated window displays, the placement of security cameras. He carried no shopping bags, made no purchases, and avoided interaction with the eager sales staff who attempted to catch his attention. The man's designer suit and expensive watch suggested he belonged among Westbrook's usual clientele, but Marcus had developed an almost supernatural instinct for detecting when something was amiss. He observed as the stranger paused before the newly renovated East Wing, pulling out a small notebook and jotting down what appeared to be observations. Suspicious behavior, Marcus muttered to himself, adjusting his perfectly pressed uniform. The mall had recently experienced a series of high-profile corporate evaluations, and Marcus suspected this might be another attempt to gather competitive intelligence. His supervisor had warned the security team about industrial espionage, emphasizing the need for increased vigilance. Will Smith, though Marcus didn't recognize him without his usual entourage, continued his methodical inspection of the property. He had purposely chosen to visit incognito, wanting to experience the mall as an ordinary customer would. As the new owner of the Westbrook Mall Group, he believed in understanding his investments from ground level. The security officer's patience wore thin as he watched the man sketch what appeared to be a layout of the security camera placement. Marcus had seen enough. Drawing himself to his full height, he strode purposefully toward the stranger, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. "Sir," Marcus called out, his voice carrying the weight of authority that 15 years of service had instilled. "I need you to identify yourself and explain your activities." The abrupt confrontation drew the attention of nearby shoppers, who slowed their pace to observe the unfolding scene. Will Smith looked up from his notebook, genuine surprise registering on his face. He opened his mouth to respond, but Marcus cut him off. "Sir, if you can't provide a valid reason for your behavior, I'll have to ask you to leave the premises immediately." The growing crowd of onlookers pulled out their phones, sensing the potential for viral content. The tension in the air was palpable as Will Smith maintained his composure, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I understand your concern," he began, "but I assure you—" "Sir, this is not a request," Marcus interrupted, gesturing firmly toward the exit. "Your behavior has been flagged as suspicious, and I am authorized to remove any individuals who pose a potential security risk." Will Smith studied the security officer's face, noting the unwavering conviction in his eyes. After a moment's consideration, he nodded slowly. "Very well," he said, closing his notebook. "I'll leave." As he turned toward the exit, he paused briefly, looking back at Marcus. "Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from unexpected places," he remarked cryptically. The crowd parted as Will Smith made his way to the door, phones recording his dignified exit. Marcus stood his ground, satisfied that he had successfully protected the mall's interests. Little did he know that his world was about to be turned upside down as his phone buzzed with an urgent message from mall management. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. Let's continue. Chapter 2. The Weight of Authority. Sarah Chen, Westbrook Mall's general manager, was in the middle of a conference call when her assistant burst into the office, face flushed with urgency. The expression on her assistant's face made her immediately end the call. "What's happening, Jessica?" "Miss Chen, we have a situation," Jessica whispered, her tablet shaking in her hands. "Will Smith was just escorted out of the mall by security. It's already trending on social media." She turned the screen towards Sarah, showing multiple viral videos of the incident from different angles. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Will Smith had specifically informed corporate that he would be conducting an unannounced visit this week, wanting to experience the mall's operations firsthand before implementing his vision for the property's future. The memo had been marked confidential, shared only with senior management to maintain the authenticity of his experience. "Get Marcus up here immediately," Sarah ordered, her mind racing through potential damage control scenarios. Will Smith wasn't just any celebrity. He was their new owner, the visionary entrepreneur who had recently acquired the entire Westbrook Mall Group in a landmark $4.2 billion deal. As she waited for Marcus to arrive, Sarah's phone lit up with messages from corporate headquarters. The videos were spreading like wildfire across social platforms, with commentators already dissecting every second of the interaction. Will Smith's dignified response to the situation was drawing praise, while the mall's security approach was being heavily criticized. Marcus entered the office, still carrying himself with the confident authority that had defined his career. "Miss Chen, you wanted to see me?" he said, straightening his tie. "If this is about the suspicious individual I just removed, I can assure you I followed all proper protocols." Sarah took a deep breath, studying the man who had been one of her most reliable employees for over a decade. "Marcus, do you know who Will Smith is?" "Of course," he replied, slightly confused by the question. "Everyone knows Will Smith. He's one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. His business empire includes technology, entertainment, and now real estate." The realization hit Marcus like a physical force. His face paled as the pieces fell into place. The man's careful observation of the property, his expensive attire, his enigmatic smile as he left. "The man I just..." He couldn't finish the sentence. "Yes, Marcus, you just escorted our new owner out of his own mall," Sarah confirmed, her voice steady but grave. "Will Smith acquired Westbrook Mall Group last month. He was here today conducting a personal inspection of the property." Marcus sank into the nearest chair, his previously rigid posture crumbling under the weight of understanding. The videos playing on Jessica's tablet showed his confrontation from multiple angles, his authoritative stance now appearing overzealous and misguided. "There's more," Sarah continued, checking her phone. "Mr. Smith is waiting in the executive conference room. He's requested a meeting with both of us." She watched as Marcus processed this information, his professional demeanor struggling to maintain composure. The walk to the conference room felt like the longest journey of Marcus's career. Each step echoed through the administrative corridor, carrying him closer to what he assumed would be the end of his 15 years at Westbrook Mall. The security protocols he had so proudly enforced now seemed to mock him, their weight transformed from a shield into a burden. As they approached the conference room's frosted glass doors, Sarah paused. "Marcus," she said quietly, "whatever happens in there, remember that your dedication to this mall's security has been invaluable. Sometimes our greatest strengths can also be our blind spots." Through the glass, they could see Will Smith's silhouette, seated calmly at the head of the table, reviewing documents. The man Marcus had dismissed as a security threat was about to decide his fate, and all he could think about was how he had failed to see what was right in front of him. Chapter 3. Unexpected Lessons. Will Smith looked up from his papers as Sarah and Marcus entered the conference room, his expression unreadable. The same calm demeanor that Marcus had found suspicious earlier now filled the room with an almost tangible presence. The afternoon sun, streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, cast long shadows across the polished conference table. "Please sit down." Will Smith gestured to the chairs, his voice carrying none of the anger or indignation that Marcus had expected. Sarah took her seat with practiced grace, while Marcus lowered himself stiffly into the chair, his security uniform suddenly feeling too tight around the collar. "Mr. Smith," Sarah began, "I want to personally apologize for the misunderstanding that occurred today. Will Smith raised his hand gently, stopping her mid-sentence. "Ms. Chen, there's no need for apologies just yet. I'd like to hear from Marcus first." He turned his attention to the security officer who sat rigid in his chair. "Tell me, Marcus, how long have you worked at Westbrook Mall?" 15 years, sir," Marcus answered, his voice steadier than he felt. "And in those 15 years, how many genuine security threats have you prevented?" Marcus blinked, surprised by the question. "Hundreds, sir. Everything from shoplifting attempts to corporate espionage. Just last month, we prevented an organized group from gathering competitive intelligence about our high-end retailers." Will Smith nodded, making notes in his leather-bound notebook, the same one Marcus had considered suspicious earlier. "And how do you identify these threats?" "It's a combination of training and instinct, sir," Marcus explained, finding his professional voice. "We look for behavioral patterns, unusual attention to security features, people who seem out of place or who show too much interest in operational details. Like someone walking around, taking notes about the property?" Will Smith asked, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Marcus felt his face flush. "Yes, sir. I apologize for my actions." "I should have what?" Will Smith interrupted, leaning forward. "Should have ignored your instincts? Should have let someone you perceived as a security threat continue their surveillance because they were well-dressed? Tell me, Marcus, if you had known who I was, would you have stopped me?" The question hung in the air. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her chair, but Will Smith's attention remained fixed on Marcus. "No, sir," Marcus admitted. "I wouldn't have. And that," Will Smith said, closing his notebook, "is exactly why I'm here today. When I acquired Westbrook Mall Group, I didn't just buy buildings and revenue streams. I bought into a responsibility to our employees, our customers, and our community. Today, you showed me something valuable." Marcus and Sarah exchanged confused glances as Will Smith stood up and walked to the window, gazing out at the mall below. "You showed me that our security protocols work, regardless of status or appearance. You showed me that at least one person in this organization isn't afraid to challenge authority, even when that authority owns the building." Turning back to face them, Will Smith's expression grew serious. "However, you also showed me where we need improvement. The way you handled the situation, while procedurally correct, lacked something essential: humanity. You didn't ask questions, you made assumptions, you didn't listen, you commanded." Will Smith returned to his seat, pulling out a tablet and pulling up the viral videos of the incident. "These videos aren't just an embarrassment for the mall, Marcus. They're an opportunity. An opportunity to examine how we treat people, how we exercise authority, and how we can do better." Sarah watched in amazement as Will Smith began outlining his vision for a new training program, one that would combine security excellence with emotional intelligence and cultural awareness. Marcus found himself taking notes, his earlier fear of termination transforming into something entirely different: hope. "I don't want to change your instincts, Marcus," Will Smith continued. "I want to enhance them. Starting next month, you'll be heading up our new security enhancement program. Ms. Chen will help you develop the curriculum, incorporating today's incident as a case study." The tension in the room shifted to disbelief. Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he processed what he was hearing. Instead of ending his career, Will Smith was expanding it, turning his mistake into a teaching opportunity for others. Chapter 4. Transformations. The news of Will Smith's decision spread through Westbrook Mall like wildfire. Within hours, the narrative on social media had shifted dramatically. What had started as a viral video showcasing corporate security overreach was transforming into a story about leadership, redemption, and innovative management. Marcus sat in his small office, staring at his computer screen as comments and shares continued to multiply. Will Smith had just posted a thoughtful statement on his social media platforms, praising Westbrook Mall's commitment to security while announcing the new training initiative. The post had already garnered millions of interactions, with business leaders and celebrities commending the approach. "Still processing everything?" Sarah asked, appearing in his doorway. She had removed her blazer, a sign that the day's formal tensions had finally begun to ease. "I've never seen anything quite like this in my 20 years of retail management." Marcus nodded, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "I keep waiting to wake up," he admitted. "When we walked into that conference room, I was certain my career was over. Instead," he glanced down at the preliminary outline for the security enhancement program that Will Smith had sent over. "Instead, you're about to revolutionize mall security training," Sarah completed his thought, settling into the chair. "Will Smith sees something in you, Marcus. Something beyond the mistake you made today." The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the office window as they began discussing the program's implementation. The outline Will Smith had provided was ambitious, combining traditional security protocols with psychological training, cultural sensitivity workshops, and conflict resolution techniques. "Look at this section," Marcus said, turning his screen toward Sarah. "He wants us to incorporate real-world scenarios, including today's incident, into virtual reality training modules. Security officers will practice making split-second decisions while learning to recognize their own biases." Sarah leaned forward, studying the proposal. "Will Smith isn't just trying to fix a PR issue," she observed. "He's using this situation to address deeper problems in retail security. The question is, are you ready for this level of responsibility?" Before Marcus could respond, his phone buzzed with a notification. Will Smith had just posted another update, this time including a photo of their conference room meeting. The caption read, "Real change happens when we turn our mistakes into opportunities for growth. Proud to announce that Marcus Reynolds will be leading Westbrook Mall's groundbreaking security enhancement program. Sometimes our greatest teachers are the moments that challenge us most." The post was rapidly gaining traction, with major news outlets picking up the story. Marcus's phone began lighting up with messages from colleagues and security professionals across the country. Everyone wanted to know more about the program and the man behind it. "I don't know if I'm ready," Marcus admitted, looking up from his phone. "This morning I was just a mall security officer doing his job. Now Will Smith wants me to reshape how we approach retail security nationwide." Sarah smiled, remembering her own moments of self-doubt throughout her career. "That's exactly why you're the right person for this, Marcus. You understand both sides now, the importance of security and the cost of assumptions. Will Smith saw that in you." As they continued planning, Marcus noticed a subtle shift in his perspective. The security cameras he had monitored for 15 years now seemed to tell different stories. Each shopper, each employee, each visitor carried their own narrative, one that couldn't be understood through surveillance alone. The mall was quieting down for the evening, but Marcus's mind was racing with possibilities. Will Smith had given him more than a second chance. He had given him a mission. The security enhancement program would need to balance authority with empathy, vigilance with understanding. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a direct message from Will Smith. "Ready to start tomorrow? The real work begins now." Marcus stared at the message, feeling the weight of the opportunity and responsibility settling on his shoulders. The man he had escorted out of the mall just hours ago was now trusting him to transform security practices across the entire Westbrook Mall group. Chapter 5. New Horizons. The Westbrook Mall's training center was packed with security personnel from all 12 properties in the mall group. Marcus stood at the podium, facing his colleagues, many of whom he'd known for years. This was his first official presentation as head of the Security Enhancement Program, and Will Smith himself sat in the back row, observing quietly. "Yesterday, I was exactly where you are now," Marcus began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I thought I knew everything about mall security. 15 years of experience had taught me to trust my instincts, follow protocols, and maintain authority at all times. Then, in one moment, everything I thought I knew was challenged." The room grew silent as Marcus played the viral video of his confrontation with Will Smith. Watching it now, from his new perspective, he could see everything he'd missed that day, the subtle clues, the opportunities for dialogue, the assumptions that had clouded his judgment. "Our job isn't just about protecting property," he continued, advancing to the next slide in his presentation. "It's about understanding people. Will Smith showed me that security without humanity is just force, and force without understanding creates more problems than it solves." In the back of the room, Will Smith nodded approvingly, making notes in his ever-present leather notebook. The same notebook that had triggered Marcus's suspicions just days ago now represented something different, a symbol of how quick judgments could blind you to reality. "The Security Enhancement Program isn't about throwing away everything we know," Marcus explained, revealing the new training modules on the screen. "It's about adding new tools to our arsenal. Understanding cultural differences, recognizing our own biases, learning to de-escalate situations through communication rather than confrontation." Some of the older security officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Marcus recognized their expressions. He'd worn the same one just days ago. Change wasn't easy, especially when it challenged years of ingrained habits and beliefs. "I see some skeptical faces out there," he acknowledged, moving away from the podium to engage more directly with his audience. "That's good. Skepticism means you're thinking critically. But let me ask you something. How many times have we escalated situations that could have been resolved through conversation? How many times have we made assumptions that turned out to be wrong?" Sarah, sitting in the front row, watched with pride as Marcus commanded the room. His transformation from rigid security officer to thoughtful leader was remarkable, and it had happened in less than a week. "Will Smith taught me something valuable," Marcus continued, gesturing to their employer in the back of the room. "He showed me that true authority comes not from forcing compliance, but from earning respect. When I confronted him at the mall, I had authority but no respect. I had power but no understanding." The presentation shifted to interactive scenarios, with Marcus guiding his colleagues through various situations they might encounter. Each scenario was designed to challenge their assumptions and encourage more nuanced responses to potential security threats. "Starting next week, we'll begin implementing virtual reality training sessions," Marcus announced, pointing to the VR headsets arranged along the wall. "These simulations will put you in challenging situations where you'll need to balance security protocols with human understanding. You'll experience what it's like to be on both sides of a confrontation." Will Smith stood up, walking to the front of the room. "What Marcus is creating here isn't just a training program," he addressed the group. "It's a new paradigm for retail security, one that recognizes that true safety comes from understanding, not just enforcement." The atmosphere in the room had shifted. The initial skepticism was giving way to curiosity and engagement. Security officers who had started the session with crossed arms were now leaning forward, asking questions, sharing their own experiences. As the session wrapped up, Marcus noticed something changing in himself as well. The weight of authority he'd carried for 15 years felt different now, not lighter, but more balanced. He was learning that true leadership wasn't about controlling situations, but about understanding them. Chapter 6, Full Circle. 3 months after the viral incident, Westbrook Mall had transformed into a case study for modern retail security. News channels and business publications were running features about the revolutionary changes implemented under Marcus's leadership. The security enhancement program had become a blueprint for shopping centers worldwide. Marcus stood in the exact spot where he had confronted Will Smith that fateful day. The marble floors still gleamed, the designer stores still displayed their luxury goods, but everything else had changed, including him. Thinking deep thoughts? Will Smith's voice came from behind him. Marcus turned to find his boss approaching with a familiar leather notebook in hand. "I had a feeling I'd find you here." "Just reflecting," Marcus replied, gesturing to the space around them. 3 months ago, I saw you as a threat right here. Now, security officers from across the country are coming to learn our new approach." Will Smith nodded, opening his notebook. "I've been keeping track of our progress. Incident reports are down 60%, customer satisfaction is up 45%, and our security staff retention rate has never been higher. But those aren't the numbers I'm most proud of." He turned the notebook toward Marcus, revealing a page filled with testimonials from security officers and customers alike. Stories of conflicts resolved through dialogue, of misunderstandings prevented through cultural awareness, of trust built through respect rather than force. "Mr. Smith," Marcus began, but Will raised his hand. "Will, please. I think we're well past formalities now." "Will," Marcus corrected himself, "I never properly thanked you for what you did that day. Most owners would have had me removed immediately. Instead, you saw an opportunity for change." "What I saw," Will replied, "was someone who cared enough about doing their job right that they were willing to confront the owner of the company. That kind of dedication is rare. It just needed to be channeled in the right direction." Their conversation was interrupted by a group of security officers approaching with their new trainer. A young woman Marcus had recently hired specifically to handle cultural sensitivity training. The group was engaged in an animated discussion about de-escalation techniques. "Your latest innovation?" Will asked, nodding toward the group. "Yes," Marcus smiled. "Lisa's background in cultural anthropology brings a whole new perspective to our training. She's helping us understand that security isn't just about watching people, it's about understanding them." Will Smith watched as the group continued their training walk through the mall. "You know, Marcus, when I bought Westbrook Mall Group, I had plans for revolutionary changes. I just never expected they would start with a security officer escorting me out of my own building." They both laughed at the memory that had once seemed so catastrophic. The viral videos of their confrontation were now used in training sessions across the country, teaching valuable lessons about assumptions, authority, and the importance of human connection in security work. "We're hosting the National Retail Security Conference next month," Marcus said, straightening his new blazer. He'd traded in his security uniform for business attire that better reflected his current role. "They want us to present our program as a model for the future of retail security." "And how do you feel about that?" Will asked, though the proud smile on his face suggested he already knew the answer. "Ready," Marcus replied without hesitation. "What happened that day taught me that our greatest mistakes can become our greatest opportunities for growth. Every security officer out there needs to understand that authority without empathy is just power, and power without understanding is dangerous." Will Smith closed his notebook and placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "That right there. That's why I knew I made the right choice. You didn't just learn from your mistake, you turned it into a mission to help others learn too." As they walked through the mall together, Marcus saw his reflection in a store window. The man looking back at him was different from the rigid security officer of 3 months ago. He had learned that true security came not from control, but from understanding, a lesson that had transformed not just his career, but his entire worldview. Fim da Historia. Dear viewers, we hope Will Smith and Marcus's story has touched your hearts and shown you how moments of challenge can become opportunities for transformation. This journey of growth and understanding is just one of many inspiring stories we bring to you. If you'd like to follow more narratives that explore the complexities of human connection and personal growth, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced a moment that completely changed your perspective? Remember to turn on notifications so you don't miss our next storytelling adventure. Your support helps us continue sharing these meaningful stories that remind us of our shared humanity.